London has become hell on earth, and ordinary people are paying for it in fear. Not in Westminster, not in City Hall. You.
10 years in charge and London's safe city story collapses. Nearly 700 phone and shop robberies occur every day. Over 9,000 grooming gang cases were buried. Knife crime is rising year after year with no sign of stopping. And immigration is surging without control. Those aren't statistics. That's shutters down, heads down, phones clutched like bait. And he still stands on stage saying,
"Thank you, London."
As if a speech can cancel this. No. Fear isn't fixed by slogans. Trust isn't bought with applause. A mayor isn't scored on speeches. He's scored on scars. And London is covered in wounds. So when the crowd turns on him live, there isn't disrespect. That is the bill being handed back to the man who signed it. Like, subscribe. Let's expose it. Stop pretending this is a few bad incidents.
In 2025, London recorded over 150 stolen phones. That's not a headline. That's a pipeline. And shoplifting? Nearly 100,000 offences. That's not kids being silly. That's a city being looted one shelf at a time. Here's what people don't understand until they live it. This changes behaviour. Fast shop owners stop being welcoming. They start being defensive. They lock up basics. They hire security. They cut hours. Some just quit because it's not worth being threatened for a packet of razor blades. Out on the street, people learn a new routine, not enjoy London. Survive London. You don't stand still. You don't take your phone out near the curb. You don't wear anything that looks expensive. You don't relax. And when a whole city starts living like that, it isn't urban life, it's governance failure. Now here's the killer detail. If the system doesn't finish the job, crime grows legs. One report says that in 2025, only 6% of shoplifting offences reportedly led to a charge. 6%? That's basically telling offenders, have another go. So don't tell me this is complicated. The public understands it in one sentence. When consequences disappear, confidence moves to the wrong side, and the mayor who lets that become normal doesn't deserve speeches. He deserves a reckoning.
Now watch what City Hall chose to chase while the basics collapsed. This is what Londoners hate most. Not a mistake, but a pattern. Khan moves fast when it's about charging you, slow when it's about protecting you. ULEZ became the symbol. Because Outer London isn't a cartoon. It's people who commute, people who care for family, tradesmen, cleaners, carers, shift workers. They don't drive for fun, they drive because the city's layout forces it. So when you expand a charge and say it's for your own good, people here pay up and shut up. And while City Hall obsesses over the charging zone, London's housing reality becomes brutal. In the year to March 2025, 13,231 people were recorded sleeping rough in London. That number should end careers. And it's not isolated. Shelter data cited in reporting shows boroughs where homelessness is at horrifying levels, more than 1 inch 20 inches places, like Newham around 1 inch 18, Westminster around 1 inch 21. Read that again. That's not hard times. That's the system failing at the first duty of a city, shelter. So when the crowd shouts, "You can't build," they're not reciting poetry. They're describing a reality. A leadership that can build enforcement for charges, but can't build enough safety and housing to keep people off the pavement. That's why the backlash sticks, because it isn't about one policy. It's about a mayor whose priorities look upside down. And here's the part that should shame every person in power, because it hits the people who have the least fight left in them. Older Londoners live on fixed income. That's the whole point. You do your years, you pay in, you keep your side of the bargain, and the system is supposed to keep you safe and stable. But London, under this leadership, has turned old age into a survival exercise. Eating becomes a choice. Food becomes a strategy. Transport becomes a calculation. You don't pop out, you plan everything like a military operation. And here's the dirty link politicians avoid. Housing pressure becomes health pressure. Reporting citing shelter points to the mechanism. Private rents rise while housing support fails to keep up, pushing more people into homelessness. And when that happens, health collapses fast, especially for the elderly. You want to know what health inequality looks like? It looks like someone with money buying their way out of delays, stress and cold, and someone without money absorbing it with their body. That's not fairness. That's abandonment. And the rage people feel isn't ideological. It's human, because a city that can charge you with precision but can't guarantee dignity in old age is not a modern capital. It's a machine, and it's chewing up the very people who built it. Now step back and look at the shape of this. Not one bad week, not one bad borough. The shape, because what you're seeing is a city being run like a machine that extracts instead of a city that protects. And once that happens, everything starts feeding everything. Street crime isn't just crime, it becomes a tax on daily life. You pay in time, you pay in stress, you pay in paranoia. Businesses pay twice. First in stolen stock, then in security, then in higher prices, and the public pays again at the till. Then you add policy choices that feel like punishment. Not because clean air's bad, but because the message is clear. We can enforce charges on ordinary people with precision, but we can't enforce basic order with the same urgency. That imbalance is what breaks respect. And when housing collapses, it doesn't stay inside housing. It bleeds into health, into schooling, into safety, into community cohesion. That is why rough sleeping numbers aren't just sad, they are a red flag for governance. Finally, cost of living and health inequality finish the job, because the people who can't adapt, the elderly, the vulnerable, are the first to get crushed. And when a city starts crushing its older citizens, it loses moral authority. Not in theory, in the gut. So here's the charge against Khan's London. It doesn't feel like leadership that carries the burden. It feels like leadership that distributes the burden downward and calls it modern life. That's why public anger doesn't cool. It concentrates. Because citizens can forgive hardship. They cannot forgive being treated like the collateral damage of someone else's priorities. So what now? Because this isn't entertainment. It's a decision point. Londoners have been trained to lower expectations, to accept constant theft as urban, to accept aggressive charging as policy, to accept homelessness as complex, to accept elderly people shrinking their lives as unavoidable. No, that's not unavoidable. That's what happens when standards are allowed to fall and then defended. A great city is not a place where politicians speak well. It's a place where ordinary people can live normally, walk, work, run a shop, grow old, without feeling hunted, punished, or priced out of dignity. And don't let anyone twist this into a culture war. This is about competence. This is about priorities. This is about whether City Hall exists to serve the public or to manage the public. Because once people stop believing the system is for them, they disengage, they withdraw, they stop cooperating, and then the city becomes harder to police, harder to fix, harder to hold together. That's why speaking up matters, not to vent, to draw a line. So write this in the comments. London deserves better. Share this with someone who feels the same pressure, and keep the focus where it belongs. Outcomes on the ground. Like, subscribe, because if the public doesn't demand standards, nobody else will.